What's going on, everyone? Dots Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys my Magicka Nightblade PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Waking Flame patch. So I just recently brought my Umbra build out of the archives and completely overhauled it for Waking Flame, and honestly, I don't think I've had this much fun on my Magicka Nightblade probably ever. This build is incredibly enjoyable. It's a dual wield melee build that deals an absurd amount of crit damage coming out of stealth. It is a ganking build that can still take a hit, so if you do mess up your gank or you have too many opponents on you, you are not just going to get instantaneously blown up. You do have enough tankiness to be able to escape, but you still lean super heavily into your damage. Damage is the main thing that this build does. It is completely offensive, and it's just a great time. I've played it in BG's open world. It works great in all environments. It's extremely fun, and if you're looking for a new fun Magblade build for your character, I think you'd really like this build. Now, as I always say at the beginning of my videos, guys, this is just what I like, what I use, and what's working for me. If you would change something or alter the build in some way, obviously be my guest. This is just what I have personally found success with. But kicking things off, we are going to start with our monster set, and that is going to be 2 pieces of Slime Craw for some extra crit chance and some minor berserk, which increases our damage done by 5%. We're just going for a big gank out of stealth, and we're trying to basically hit our opponents really hard in a short window. And so because of that, Slime Craw is just really nice to be able to give us a flat damage increase to make sure that we're able to deliver as much damage in a short period of time as possible. You know, this build runs a lot of percent damage augmentations, which is really good. So this is one of the ones that just plays into it. We also have mechanical acuity. This is the main driver of the offense on the build because this is a critical hit damage build. So we get a line of maximum stamina, a line of magicka, a line of spell damage, and then whenever we deal direct damage, we gain 100% crit chance for 5 seconds once every 21 seconds. Now, the good thing about this build is you still do have respectable crit outside of mechanical acuity at about 36%, but obviously inside of the mech acuity window is when we are going to be looking to deal all of our damage. So coming out of stealth, getting mech acuity, we're going to already get a guaranteed crit from our first skill out of stealth, but then we get this for another 5 seconds. So out of the stealth is when you want your big offensive window to be. And in order to make sure that we're able to deal as much damage to our opponents as possible, we are also running 5 pieces of spinners to give us 2 lines of maximum magicka, a line of spell damage, and an additional 3,400 spell penetration. So between spinners, the fact that we run a sharpened sword and a Nirn-honed mace, combined with the I believe it is called Master Assassin passive, as well as our Major Breach, we are sitting at about 21k spell penetration when hitting someone from a flank. So there are going to be very few people that are going to be able to survive your offensive onslaughts unless they are, you know, just a pure tank. But the extra spell pen makes it so that you can just kill through most opponents with ease. And it's really, really, really good to have this on the front bar. Now, you can potentially, like, I have spinners on the front bar and mechanical acuity on the body, just mostly due to convenience of the pieces that I have. You could also run 5 spinners on the body and mechanical acuity on the front bar only so that you don't proc it on the back bar. But typically, I don't run into the issue too much of proccing it on the back bar, so I don't really think it matters all too much where you have it, but I just wanted to mention that in case you did want to put mechanical acuity on the front bar instead. Our back bar staff is going to actually be the Maelstrom's Restoration Staff, which gives us extra magicka back when our rapid regen does critically strike. Now, this is really good for this build because I do run this build at a stage 3 vampire, and the extra magicka recovery from the Maelstrom Restoration Staff gives me enough sustain to be able to do that. Now, the reason that we run stage 3 vampire, guys, in case you do not know, is for 1 passive, and that is for Undeath. It reduces your damage taken by up to 30% based on your missing health. This makes it so that if we do get caught out, if we mess up on our gank and we do take some damage, we don't just get instantaneously blown up if someone looks at us too hard. So Undeath is really good to give us some extra tankiness. Vampire is also great because we ignore the movement speed penalty of Sneak, which lets us move even faster while we are stealthed. And then we also get Strike from the Shadows, which gives us 300 weapon and spell damage after we leave Sneak or Invisibility. And that's perfectly aligns with our mechanical acuity window. So when we are coming out of stealth, we are dealing maximum damage. So Vampire is really good for this build, but Maelstrom Restoration Staff is what allows us to run that vampirism without having, you know, some sustain problems. Now, in terms of traits and everything, guys, we are going full Divines, full Maximum Magicka. We are going big damage on this build. I do, unfortunately, have one piece of Infused. I still need to trait change this, but I pretty much run everything else at Divines. I also do a 5-1-1. I do a 1 medium, 1 heavy, and 5 light. Now, the reason I run light right now and not heavy, or excuse me, not medium, because I know medium does augment your critical hit damage. It also is going to give me more spell damage. But personally, the reason I have been liking light armor is because, number one, it gives me Magicka recovery, a Magicka cost reduction, which does allow me to run vampirism without too many sustain issues. But the second thing is for the penetration. You know, the thing is, I feel like with a build like this, you need to try to be able to kill as many opponents as quickly as possible. And by having higher penetration, you basically increase the number of opponents that you're going to be able to probably just instantaneously burst down with your damage. If you have much lower spell pen, certain targets are going to be, I think, harder for you to kill. But I personally like the pen from light armor. You could potentially try this with medium if you want to go for the spell damage and crit hit damage, but personally, I wanted the sustain plus the penetration. I thought that was going to be better for this setup, so that is what I ended up going with, just because the penetration will actually allow our damage to go straight through our opponent's defense and hit them for as much as possible. We also run triple arcane, triple spell damage. I am probably going to try to change these to infused eventually, but I have arcane for right now, so arcane is still a decent run, but I will, like I said, probably change these to infused eventually. So if you have these as infused, I'd run infused, but arcane's not still the end of the world. You'll still deal plenty of damage. I run a Nirnhoned Shocked Mace, a Sharpened Spinner Sword with Frost, and then we have a Defending Maelstrom Resto Staff with a weapon and spell damage glyph on that back bar. In terms of our skills, we are running Concealed Weapon with a 10.7k unbuffed tooltip. Now, this is going to, when we attack somebody from a flank, we're going to stun them for 3 seconds and set them off balance. And we also get 25% movement speed while sneaking. Concealed Weapon is spammable for the build. Great skill coming out of stealth. Plays well into the melee Magblade style. It is just super fun, especially because between Channeled Acceleration, which we run on the back bar, Vampire, and Concealed, you move quickly while you are stealths, which is really nice. We also do run Crippling Grasp. So I run Crippling Grasp here for 2 reasons. Number one, I want to be able to get Magicka Flood from the siphoning line, giving myself 8% more additional maximum Magicka. But number two, I find Crippling Grasp to be very good in 2 situations. Number one, if there's an opponent that I actually need to try and brawl with for a little bit, because some opponents are going to be harder to take down than others. You're not going to be able to one-hit everyone out of stealth. Some people run very tanky builds, and I find that the dot from Crippling Grasp just gives me a little bit of that extra damage I need to kind of push them over and give me a little bit of consistent pressure as I'm bobbing in and out of stealth using my shade. So it's really good for that, but also this is great for catching people. Sometimes you'll go to gank someone, you know, they're going to use their mobility to get away from you. Or you might be trying to catch up to somebody if they've escaped, and Crippling Grasp just gives you a 2-second route, gives them a 30% slow. It's a really good skill to be able to catch people. So I really like that for that reason, because between our innate stealth mobility plus cripple, people are going to have a tough time escaping your grasp. Ho. Anyway, the next skill is going to be Merciless Resolve. This is going to be the bow. This gives us critical hit damage and healing up to 5 times, 2%. So up to 10% critical hit damage, which is really good for a build like this. And then we can fire off the bow to deal a giant amount of damage and healing us for 50% of the damage dealt if we are within melee range. This is going to be one of our hardest hitting spells in the kit. And let me tell you guys, if you ever have the bow procced up and you're kind of away from somebody, if you don't have mechanical acuity up and want to guarantee it crits, just go into stealth and then shoot off the bow. You're just going to get a guaranteed crit with Shadowy Disguise, which is going to be our stealth for the build. You can stay stealth for a long ass time in this build. Stealth is going to be your main mechanic. This is going to be one of your main defensive mechanics. Again, we have 1 piece of heavy, 1 piece of medium, everything else is light, and everything is divines. So we are not very tanky. You know, we have enough tankiness to take a hit or two, but you're not going to be the tankiest boy out there. So you need to really use Shadowy Disguise combined with your Shadow Image on your back bar as your main mobility tools to be able to keep yourself alive. We also do have Inner Light. I run Inner Light on my front bar, mostly for the Mages Guild passives. You get a good amount of maximum magicka from Inner Light combined with Magicka Flood. So this gives me a lot of effective damage on the front bar, which gives me some really, really, really nice tooltips. Now, something that people have brought up when I played this build on stream is potentially running Elemental Weapon. This is also something I wanted to mention here. You can also potentially drop Inner Light for Ellie Weapon if you do want to run this, because then what you can do is you can go Stealth, Ellie Weapon, and then Light Attack Concealed, and you will deal a lot of damage with the Elemental Weapon. I have something with Ellie Weapon that there's just something I don't like about it. I don't know. Every time I play it, every time I use it, I just don't like it. I don't like how it feels. It's just a personal thing. But if you want to kind of try that combo out, you absolutely can. I mean, you can see the Concealed Weapon tooltip is still great, but I just go for the big flat damage increases just because I'm not the biggest fan of Ellie Weapon, but I did want to bring it up and mention it just in case you did want to give that a try. I also do run Soul Harvest. Soul Harvest is going to be a massive, massive tooltip of 17k, and then it also increases our damage against our targets by 20%. So if you use this prior to using the bow, you will just rip someone to shreds. You also do give them Major Defile, so if someone is particularly tough to kill, this is going to be really, really nice to be able to take them down. And we use Soul Harvest over the in-cap morph because also of the 10 ultimate. Every time you kill an enemy, we're going to be trying to kill people hard and fast. And so with Soul Harvest in the front bar, you're going to basically be maximizing the amount of uptime on this because in addition to the 10 ultimate from this, you also gain a shitload of ultimate from Catalyst. After drinking a potion, you gain 20 ultimate. So you're going to have Soul Harvest up extremely frequently. So that is why I like Soul Harvest for the build. Back bar. We use Reaper's Mark. This is going to be our form of Major Breach. We also do get a giant heal when this goes off. If we do kill somebody, 15.5k heal. But the nice thing too is we get Major Berserk, increasing our damage done by 10% for 5 seconds. So we will have Major and Minor Berserk present on this build. And let me tell you guys, if you kill someone with Reaper's Mark and get Major Berserk, your damage goes through the freaking roof. You are going to be absolutely cranking on people. So really, really good for this reason. You know, I don't really feel the need for piercing. I find Reapers personally to be a little bit better. But if you have trouble with other Nightblades and you don't want to run Inner Light to see them out, you know, you could always use piercing instead. But I think Reapers is extremely good, so I do run it for that reason. Sometimes I will admit, if I'm going to gank somebody and I'm fully buffed up, you know, we got Channeled Acceleration, we got Shadow Image, Siphoning, and Merciless. A lot of times I won't use Reaper's Mark before I go in, because Reaper's Mark is just like a, hey, you're about to get ganked kind of thing. And so a lot of times I'll just gank people without it, and then if that person proves to be a little bit tough to kill, then I'll use Reaper's Mark instead, like on them once I've engaged, and then continue to fight them. So I get that penetration afterwards. So that's just kind of the way that I use it, so something to think about. Siphoning attacks is going to be our siphoning skill on the back bar, again, for Magicka Flood. Plus, this gives us health and Magicka whenever we use light attacks or heavy attacks. And this also gives us a big boost to our Magicka after the effect ends. So this is going to be one of our primary sustain tools on the build. Rapid Regen is going to be our primary heal. And it's also going to give us Magicka back with the Maelstrom Restoration Staff. So this is your main heal, man. This is going to be what saves you. So very, very important skill. It heals for a ton over 5 seconds. So it's very, very good. And yeah, it's just the build's primary heal. Your lifeblood of the build is Shadow Image. So Shadow Image, basically, if you don't know what this does, it attacks your target for a small dot, gives them minor maim. But the main thing that you can do is that you can poof back to the shade from a distance. That's your saving grace right there. You need to always know where your shade is and play around your shade's location, because if you get caught and are in a shitty situation, shade is how you are getting out. So it is by far the most important skill in the build to really master, because most of your survivability is based around it. So, you know, practice the shade, practice putting it in good locations. Always make a mental note in your head of where it is. You know, sometimes if you see me play the build on stream, a lot of times when I die, it's because I lose track of my shade. So really, really, really important skill to use for the build. And honestly, it's one of my favorite skills to use. You can do some really tricky shit with this, some Z-axis stuff with it. It's incredibly enjoyable. The final skill is Channeled Acceleration. So Channeled Acceleration gives us Major Expedition for 12 seconds and Minor Force for 36 seconds, with giving us 30% movement speed and 10% critical hit damage. I personally like this over Race Against Time because I don't know. I just don't feel like I need Race Against Time, to be honest. I have Shade, and in certain situations where I'm fighting somebody right, if I can't get out with Stealth, I'm just going to poof out with Shade. You know, it's not like I'm going to use Race Against Time and, like, just, like, run away. You know, like, I'm just going to use Shade, poof out, and then afterwards, then Stealth, and then I'm already out. So I'd rather have the really, really long duration on Minor Force so that I don't need to refresh that buff as much. You know, and just have, like, much greater uptime than having to constantly refresh it in order to gain Minor Force. Also, something that's a little tricky that you can do that I've done a couple times on this build, and it's actually saved my ass, is if you are, like, kiting and you find yourself taking a lot of damage, you can actually go and start Channeled Acceleration, because they added a unique 30% damage reduction buff with Deliberation. So between Undeath, Deliberation, you will actually be pretty tanky while you're channeling it. So just, you know, it's very niche. It only comes up, it very rarely comes up, but it's just something a little cool that you can do. And I've done it already a couple of times and it saved my butt. So just figured something I'd mention. Back bar ultimate is going to be Light's Champion for Major Force. So we will have both Major and Minor Force on the build. This is for situations where we need to heal right now. You know, this is a 10k heal every second for 5 seconds. So this is, do I need to heal right frickin' now? So, but the cool thing with Light's Champion is that it gives you some offensive prowess as well. So, you know, if you're sitting here again, fully buffed up, you have everything up and you need to heal yourself and use Minor Force, you can use Minor Force, go Stealth, and then hit someone with Concealed. You will have Major and Minor Force going with them. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of damage coming out of Stealth, especially if Mecha Acuity procs, your crit damage is going to be through the roof. So very, very, very good ultimate for that reason. In terms of other things, we are running the Shadow Mundus for increased critical damage. Again, full divines across the board, so our critical damage is going to be very, very, very high. We, again, run Vampire Stage 3 for the reasons that I've stated multiple times in this guide so far. And then you either want to use the Clockwork Citrus Fillet or Witch Mother's Potent Brew Foods for Magicka Recovery, Maximum Magicka, and Maximum Health. Clockwork Citrus Fillet is going to be better than Witch Mother's, but I don't have it, so I'm just using Witch Mother's for the time being. The race, I personally really like Breton. I know it's weird maybe to play Breton on a ganking build. I know Khajiit, Dark Elf are going to be what people typically play. But part of the reason I like Breton is because it, again, allows me to sustain Stage 3 Vampire. And with the way that I play my build, I actually have enough sustain to go from opponent to opponent to opponent to opponent. And even if I need to fight it out with someone, I can. You know, like, sure, I could go for maximum one-hit, one-shot damage if I was playing a Khajiit or a Dark Elf, and my damage would be a lot higher. But the good thing about playing the Breton is that it's not like I attack one target, blow my load, and then I need to, like, sit there and wait for my Magicka to regen for a while before I attack somebody else. Like, I can actually, I feel like with the Breton, bounce around to multiple targets and have Magicka the whole time. And I can stay in Cloak for a long-ass time with the Breton sustained passive. So Breton is just a personal choice for me. It's a race that I like. If you want to go for max damage and you do not care, Dots Gaming, I don't give a shit about my sustain. I just want to murder one person as quickly as possible. Go with the Khajiit or the Dark Elf, but Breton is just kind of like a little personal choice for me. So I do like it for that reason. Pretty sure we covered everything. All points to the Magicka, of course. Stat sheet, what it's looking like right now. We got 15k spell penetration, 3,800 unbuffed spell damage, 41k and a half k maximum Magicka. Again, this will be lower if you go infused, and this will be higher with infused, so just keep that in mind. 24k maximum health. Stamina's pretty low, 14.4k max stam, 1,400 Magicka recovery, 15, I said that already. Spell resist unbuffed is just 15.4k and 9.5k. Back bar, it's 18.7 and 12.7 with 1,300 critical resistance. Now going into our champion points, we go full offensive with our CP, boys. Full offensive. We go with Backstabber for 15% critical damage done. Fighting Finesse for 10% critical damage done. This Backstabber specifically from a flank, which we should be hitting from a flank anyway with Concealed. So 15% crit damage, another 10% crit damage. Then we go Deadly Aim for 10% single target damage done, which all of our skills are. And then Mastered Arms for another 10% direct damage done. So just tons of damage modifiers with this build. We don't need any defense really because we have just enough defense baked into the build with things like Undeath and being a Breton. Red CP wise, I actually go with Rejuvenation. The reason I go with Rejuvenation and not the new, what's it called? Not the new Sustained by Suffering is because the whole point of this is I shouldn't be actively getting hit. You know, I don't want to sit in combat and be hit all the time and have all these negative effects on me. I want to try to hit someone, kill them, and bounce to somebody else. So I'd rather just have a little bit of Magicka recovery all the time than like a lot of Magicka recovery while I'm actively fighting, if that makes sense. So I personally like Rejuvenation for that reason, because again, my goal is to not be in the fray taking damage for Sustained by Suffering. I'd rather have that recovery outside of it. Boundless Vitality for some extra maximum health. I run Juggernaut still, 5% damage reduction after you come out of a crowd control. Exact same logic with that I just said. Pain's Refuge is what I'm using on a lot of my other characters. Per negative effect on you, take 1% less damage up to a maximum of 20%. But again, I'm not trying to actively stay out there and fight and brawl it out. And so because of that, I don't think Pain's Refuge is going to be better than Juggernaut for this build. So I use Juggernaut combined with Relentlessness to basically help protect myself after I get stunned. So I get major protection for 3 seconds after I get stunned. Plus I get the 5% damage reduction when I then CC break. So, you know, these two damage reductions combined as well with Undeath, being the Breton resistance, defending on the staff, gives me enough tankiness that if I do get stunned or CC'd for some reason, I will still survive. And then green CP is obviously going to be up to you. Now, in terms of the rotation for the build, it's pretty simple. You want to maintain Channel Acceleration, Shadow Image, Siphoning, Merciless. You then want to Stealth in, and you want to use Concealed Weapon on somebody from behind. Obviously, once you have the potion up as well, because we do run Essence of Spell Power for Major Sorcery, Prophecy, and Magicka Restoration. So pop your potion, and then gank somebody. And then you just basically want to Light Attack and Sealed Weave. Now, when I go into Reaper's Mark and Crippling Grasp, is again, if the opponent's going to be tough to kill. So typically at that point, if I, you know, again, fully buffed up, if I engage somebody and try to gank them and notice, oh god, this guy's going to be kind of tough to kill, a lot of times I'll bow back out, I'll Light Attack, Reaper's Mark, then back into Stealth, then Crippling Grasp, and then go back into the Light Attack and Sealed Weave. And then at that point, they're fully debuffed, you're fully buffed, and then you just continuously weave on them, weave in Soul Harvest whenever it comes up. Again, defensively, your entire defensive play is going to be based off of Shade, Cloak. Then you could also Rapid Regen, heal yourself back up, keep cloaking, Light Champion if you really need healing, and that's kind of the way the build plays. You know, it's pretty straightforward. The big thing is going to be, you know, trying to make sure you get those nice clean ganks off. But the good thing is, like I said, even though this is like a pure offensively squishy build, because we have enough percent like mitigation modifiers from being Stage 3 Vampire between our champion points, you actually can take a little bit of damage. You're not going to flop instantly if someone looks at you too hard. You know, you can take a little bit of damage on this build and kind of kite it out, you know? So I do like it for that reason. You have enough sustain between Witch Mothers and Breton to be able to cloak for a really long time and bounce from opponent to opponent and take them down. So, yeah, this build's really fun, man. This is probably some of the most fun I've had on my Magblade in a really long time. I think probably ever. So if you've been looking for something new and different to try in your Magicka Nightblade, I definitely recommend the newly updated Umbra build. Guys, as always, if written version can be found on my website, dotsgaming.com, if you want to refer to it at a quick glance. And hopefully you guys did like this build. And if you did, I appreciate it if you smacked a like on it. Any questions about the build, feel free to leave a comment below. And guys, for more ESO builds as well as other MMORPG content, please feel free to hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. So thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.